and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we're joined by political commentator Sabrina Kosmas, as well as the Federalist Brianna Lyman. Welcome so much, ladies. We love having you on the show. And I think we got to start out tonight with the new star, I guess they're calling her, of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. Whenever you think it's been bad enough, she comes in and she just takes a wrecking ball to the party even more, Sabrina. She, of course, I think it was last week sometime, was speaking at an event and called Texas Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels. And as people probably are aware, Governor Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair. He had his legs crushed, I believe, by a tree falling on him many years ago whenever he was younger. It's as though that wasn't bad enough. She then tried to defend it. And I'll get your response, Sabrina, to her defense of that comment. She says that she wasn't thinking about the governor's condition, calling him Governor Hot Wheels. She said, I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by Black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Sabrina, do you believe that? Is that what was happening there?
Not for a split second. I mean, I'm all for a good nickname and a good joke. I mean, President Trump coined the term Pocahontas for Elizabeth Warren, and that one's hilarious. But to go for someone's disability, and especially for the joke to not even be funny and land, is really quite a stretch. And then to not even stand by the joke is
Yeah.
also really pathetic. So it's like, you got to really commit if you're going to go that far.
Yeah, and I think Brianna, my favorite was the response that Governor Abbott had. And he was asked about it last week. And he said what I think we all can agree with. The Democrats really have nothing to sell but hate. Nobody wants to be a part of their party. They have turned off so many people in this country. I think their approval rating is at something like 29% right now, which is pretty bad. He said they have nothing to sell but hate. And I assume that that's what this was all about, because what's she going to say about Governor Abbott, right?
Yeah, and I think you can tell a lot about a party by the way that its loudest proponent speaks.
Mm.
Jasmine Crockett speaks in a way in which she believes she will never be held accountable for the things she says. It's why she's been going on all these TV hits saying outrageous things, offensive things, adopting a new accent. She knows there's no level of accountability, which is also why you see the type of dehumanizing rhetoric coming from the left, whether it's toward Greg Abbott or even towards your father-in-law, right? That rhetoric that we saw leading up to the first assassination attempt was assassination prep language. They want to desensitize Americans to potential violence and dehumanize their opponents that people are desensitized.
Yeah. And I mean, they've kind of been doing this for years. You remember during the first Trump administration, you had Maxine Waters. Remember that? Her yelling in that microphone, when you see a member of this administration out, you get up in their faces. Remember all that? And then, you had like Sarah Sanders getting kicked out of a restaurant with her family and all of this. I mean, they really are just totally stoking hate and just amplifying all the negativity. It's horrible stuff. Jasmine Crockett also said that Elon Musk should be taken down. So I don't know exactly what she means by that, but you're exactly right, Brianna. I think that there need to be people in the party who come to someone like that and say, hey, this is not the way we want to be represented. But I haven't heard that. Has anybody spoken up from their own party? Maybe save for John Fetterman, who I think maybe has said a thing or two. Nobody else. It's kind of crickets over there. Am I wrong, Sabrina?
No, I think you're totally right. And it's really interesting because I've been on the show a couple times now with you, Laura, and we talk almost every time about how disingenuous the Democrats have become. And I think that they've seen how successful, President Trump has been with just speaking directly to the American people, not as some stoic politician up in their ivory tower, but from person to person. And these Democrats think that they're doing this, but this is what they think of their constituents. They think that they're trashy. They think that they're so unintelligent that they speak to them this way because they're trying to be genuine, but it is disingenuous still. They just can't figure it out.
It's so sad. It's sad to see. And the worst part is because they have, had this sort of rhetoric and it's amplified and they encourage, this really nasty negative behavior. You see what's happening to Tesla owners all across the country. Tesla dealerships also haven't heard much from the leadership in the Democrat Party saying like, hey guys, everybody out there, let's take it down a notch. Like, let's not commit arson and let's not commit domestic terrorism, which some of this stuff is, throwing Molotov cocktails, when somebody could die. That's pretty crazy and that's pretty aggressive. Haven't heard a lot from them. Here's a reason, though, that I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of Americans are happy with Donald Trump and his administration. DOGE, there seems to be an endless update of crazy stuff that we were spending money on that no one had any idea about. The latest leaderboard showcases a savings of $130 billion thanks to DOGE and Elon Musk. Here's just some highlights from the most recent one because I can't get enough of it. I don't know about you guys. The Doge.gov website can't get enough of learning what they're finding out there. Department of Labor canceled $577 million in what they call America Last grants. Here's an example of them: worker empowerment in South America, gender equity in Mexican workplaces, elevating women's participation in workplaces in West Africa. I mean, Brianna, are we serious? This is the kind of stuff that we're finding even more of. It just makes my head kind of want to explode because thank God we're finding this now. But imagine Donald Trump had not won this election. Imagine this was just allowed to go on in perpetuity. And imagine how long our taxpayer dollars have been going to crazy stuff like this. It actually, if you really think about it too long, it makes your head want to explode.
It does. And this is, again, an indictment of the kind of leader that Donald Trump is, because we all know we have had times in the past 30 years when there's been a Republican-controlled House and Senate, and they have done nothing. They are just as feckless and spineless as the Democrats, and it's Donald Trump steering the ship that forces them to get in order. So that's the first point. The second point is that our system of government, the fraud and waste we're seeing, it's not a quirk of the system, it is a design of the system, a system that has come about since FDR made a giant, massive welfare socialist state. It's gone downhill from there. The other thing I'd say is that Donald Trump is doing incredible work, and people like us can see that, but there are voters out there who, when they hear this, it doesn't hit them the same, it doesn't impact them the same, right? They need that tangible proof. And so I would like to see us get to the point one day in the next 4 years where maybe there can be, I know they've spoken about it, a DOGE dividend, right? That's something people can quite literally take to the bank when they go to those polls because they remember getting that check with DOGE and Donald Trump on it.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that they've talked about it. It could be something we see in the future. And man, nothing would burn the Democrats up more than Donald Trump and Elon Musk sending money out to people. That would really seal the deal for a lot of people. Elon says that DOGE is the biggest revolution in government since our actual original revolution. And they say that the work that they're doing is going to reduce the national deficit by $1 trillion. The current deficit is at around $1.8 trillion. That's a very big deal. Here's something I learned about as well very recently that also made me totally crazy. But this is one of those things, Sabrina, where it's like we all knew this was happening. We felt it, but we couldn't prove it. They went through at DOGE, the Social Security office, and they found all of these millions and millions of people who've been dead. There are people like upwards of 130 years old who are still getting Social Security benefits and listed, on their website, et cetera. And, within all of their, have all their information out there. Here's what was happening, though, over the past 4 years. Brianna just talked about purposeful. This had to be purposeful because listen to these numbers. You had 5.5 million non-citizens receive a Social Security number. So what would happen is they would come in the country, they would get processed in, they would be given this court date that wouldn't come for like 6+ years, and then they were allowed to go about their way. They got their information taken down, and they had, if they applied for a work permit of some variety here in America, they were then sent a Social Security number in addition to the 5.5 million non-citizens who illegally came here. This is just in the past 4 years, by the way, who got the Social Security numbers. 1.3 million of them are now on Medicaid, so our taxpayer dollars are going to them. And we found out that many of them, you use a Social Security number to register to vote. They were registering to vote, and many of these people voted. So it's pretty clear now that we kind of take a step back and take a look really at the grand scheme of things. And we all said for the past 4 years, we were like, why are they keeping this border open? Why are they facilitating the entry of illegal people into this country? They're breaking our law every day and they don't seem to care about it. Well, now we know, Sabrina, it was because they wanted them to come in. They wanted to give them social security numbers. They wanted to give them money from we, the people here in America, our taxpayer dollars. And they wanted them to have the ability to vote in unison because the Democrats supposed they were all going to vote Democrat in perpetuity, and then they would have a perpetual Democrat-run government. Am I missing anything, Sabrina?
No, I think you completely nailed it. I mean, it is so fraudulent and upsetting, especially in the midst of tax season. As an American citizen who is paying more than my fair share of taxes, when you see these reports coming out, there's nothing that's more infuriating. And I really loved how Elon pointed out that the people who are the loudest about this are the fraudsters. They are the people at the top that are trying to defend it, and anyone underneath them that's trying to defend it at this point. The irony is that they're typically leftists who would call members of MAGA, like myself, as being part of a cult, when not only are they part of a cult, but they're part of an MLM at this point. They are getting schemed left and right by their own electeds.
Yeah. So the idea that the reason they were trying to get all these people in this country was to kind of rig elections for themselves for the long term, I think is sort of terrifying, Brianna. But we all knew that there was some reason that was kind of at the crux of it all. And you felt it, but now it feels like we have solid evidence of that. And by the way, Elon also says that all those people who voted illegally in our elections, they've referred that to the Department of Justice. So good luck to them. They're going to be dealt with accordingly. Here's good news, though, with our elections. President Trump signed an executive order last week requiring voter ID, paper ballot trail, and action taken against states that count votes late. So as the former co-chair of the RNC, can I just say to President Trump, thank you, because the battle we had ahead of us leading into this past election was, I mean, it was a monster. It was so crazy, the things that we had to do just to ensure election integrity, to ensure you didn't have non-citizens voting, to ensure that dead people on these voter rolls were taken off, people that had moved away were taken off, that you didn't have states who were allowed to count votes after the deadline to count votes had already passed. Brianna, this is absolute music to my ears, and it is a good start. But I would like to see not just an executive order, I would like to see Congress act on this so that this is permanent for the future of our country.
Yes, and as an elections correspondent, let me say thank you to Donald Trump, because as I reported over this past year, it just really highlights how insecure our election systems are.
Yeah.
A few things, we talk about paper ballots. I think a lot of people don't realize, you take Georgia, for example, people don't cast their vote on a paper ballot. There's no paper ballot trail. You cast it on a machine, it prints out the ballot. You're not able to read a QR code. I can't read a QR code. So you have to trust that the system got it right. We've seen in Pennsylvania in previous elections where the QR codes have actually flipped the voter's choice. So having a paper ballot and a paper trail of a voter's intention is extremely important to a secure election. The other thing is that Donald Trump wants to require non-documentary proof of citizenship to prevent non-citizens from getting on the voter rolls. This is basic common sense election integrity, and it's taking an executive order. Now, Congress is supposed to vote this week on the SAVE Act, which would require documentary proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Democrats are waging a war against this, trying to claim it disenfranchises American voters. There is not a single voter that will be disenfranchised if they are a citizen. There are ways to get free documentation of your citizenship status. This is a way to fearmonger their base because, like you said, Democrats benefit from weak election practices, like weak safeguards. If there's not enough of them, that's where you see fraud happen.
Yeah. And by the way, the argument that somehow it disenfranchises anyone, isn't that the same argument they tried to make several years ago that I thought was highly offensive to minorities, saying that minorities couldn't figure out how to get an ID? Are you kidding me? And everybody's like, wait a minute. I know how to get an ID, or they don't have access to a computer or whatever it is. That's the same nonsense, right?
It is. Just today, the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, announced they would be dropping their lawsuit into Georgia because the Biden administration waged lawfare against Georgia for their SB, I think it's 202 bill, that was election integrity measures, because they said it disenfranchises Black voters. That was the Biden administration's argument. Do you know that Black voter turnout has increased in Georgia with these voter suppression methods in place? Because it was never voter suppression. It was about integrity. And Black people, no matter what color American you are not as dumb as Democrats want people to believe, right? You're not as incapable.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see how insulting it really is to so many people. The stuff that they put out there. I mean, I good luck to them on all this. I know that whenever you look at the numbers, people in this country believe, and this is a majority of people believe, that only American citizens should be voting in American elections. So we need to make sure that these safeguards are put in place. We need to make sure that our elections are secure. Believe me, I think it's terrible that we have to go to this extent and these lengths, but we have to, Sabrina, because we know that anywhere that there's a crack in any of this, people will start taking advantage of it. They have done it in the past. You'll still never get me to believe that 81 million people were so inspired by Joe Biden that they all came out and voted for him in 2020, but I digress. When there is a crack in the system, when there's even a little space where light can get in, people will take advantage of that. These things are necessary. And honestly, I would even go farther than this if you allowed me to have a hand in it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is one of the most basic fundamental principles of a democratic voting system. I mean, if I would try to go to any other country and vote in their election and obviously got stopped, everyone in America would laugh at me. But for some reason, when it's the other way around, we look at it as, oh, it's offensive that we stop anyone else from just providing the basic, paperwork to prove that they're even a citizen. It's completely ridiculous. I can't believe that we're at this point where the president has to do something like this.
Yeah, no, it's really unbelievable that we're here, but here we are right now. And we're talking about the border, we're talking about people coming in illegally. Here's something that I found shocking. Based on the past 4 years and Joe Biden's mass migration of people into this country, he helped wireless companies gain 1.6 million illegal migrant subscribers last year alone. I got to tell you something, Brianna. I'm sure the cell phone companies are very happy with these numbers, but that just kind of shows you how crazy this all has become. People are able to get social security numbers. People are able to get cell phones. We actually gave them a lot of those cell phones. I would bet we're giving them debit cards. We're all of this stuff. What do you think? You think Donald Trump, under his watch as president, is going to allow 1.6 million people in 1 year to subscribe to wireless companies because they're just flowing in America? Hey, everybody, Lara Trump here. Imagine you or your loved ones facing a threat. Your instinct might be to use lethal force, but considering a safer and less lethal alternative first avoids legal complications associated with firearms. As a gun owner, I advocate for having options, and Byrna is a leading choice in less lethal self-defense. Proudly assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Byrna's less lethal pistol launcher, loaded with tear gas and kinetic ammunition, can incapacitate an attacker for up to 40 minutes. This gives you plenty of time to escape or seek help while minimizing the chances of permanent harm. Byrna isn't just about averting tragedy. It actively saves lives without the repercussions of lethal force. Legal in all 50 states and requiring no background checks, Byrna has sold over 500,000 units, and it can be shipped directly to your door. After personally testing the Byrna pistol, I was honestly impressed by its power and its total ease of use, prompting me to purchase units for my own family and friends. Visit Byrna.com/Lara for 10% off my specially curated bundles. That's BYRNA.com/LARA. Stay safe, America. I've always believed in the power of storytelling, the kind that lifts you up, inspires your faith, and reminds you what truly matters. That's why I love what Angel Studios is doing. They're bringing us films that are good for our families, celebrate our country, and instill values we can stand behind. Movies like Sound of Freedom, Homestead, and Bonhoeffer. Right now, when you join the Angel Guild, you'll get 2 free tickets to King of Kings, a breathtaking animated film about the life of Jesus, in theaters this Easter. I've seen how movies like this can touch hearts and change lives. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Angel Studios is delivering family-friendly entertainment that leaves you feeling good. Films that champion faith, freedom, and self-reliance. I'm proud to support them, and I'd love for you to join me. Go to angel.com/Lara to become a premium Angel Guild member today. And you can claim your 2 free tickets to King of Kings in theaters this Easter.
No, don't look. If you look at the border crossings since Donald Trump took office, I mean, we've all seen the numbers. They're under $1,000. Bill Malugin from Fox News has frequently said if he went down to the border today, he'd have trouble finding a migrant. And I think 2 things. It's an indictment of weak Republican leadership because you have people like Senator Langford last year who was willing to negotiate our sovereignty to be buddy-buddy with Democrats to pass one of the worst border bills I've ever seen. And meanwhile, Donald Trump was able to stop the flow of migrants, which we were told could not be done unless we signed this bipartisan border deal. And got border crossings down to under $1,000 people a day. And the other thing, we're talking about illegal immigrants coming in here. Look, when we talk about non-citizen voting, the only thing standing between a non-citizen and a legal immigrant in our voting machine is a square box on the federal voter registration form that says, I attest under penalty of perjury, I'm a U.S. citizen. That is it. The honor system is what is protecting our elections from these foreigners. And when Joe Biden lets in millions of them each year, Americans have a right to be worried whether or not they can end up on our voter rolls.
Yeah, it is. It's serious stuff. It is crazy that there's that box and we're like, oh yeah, we just trust everyone to check it. It's nuts. I'll tell you what else is sort of nuts is the fact that you have an inmate in Indiana. This is a man named Jonathan Richardson, who now goes by the name Autumn Cordileone. I guess I'm pronouncing that right, Sabrina. I'm not totally sure. But this gentleman who thinks he's a woman now was sentenced to 55 years in prison for strangling his 11-month-old stepdaughter. Okay, so killed an 11-month-old baby, got 55 years in prison, and now he has been granted the right to have transgender surgery. So they're going to cut off his testicles and they're going to turn his penis into a vagina. This, by the way, costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $27,000. And the state of Indiana initially refused this, Sabrina. They said, you know what? We don't do these kind of surgeries. We don't pay for them via the taxpayer dollars for an inmate because it's absolutely insane. But a judge stepped in, Sabrina, and said, no, you know what? This individual needs this, and this is, wait for this, a medical necessity because they say her genitals remained a source of extreme and continuing distress and led the inmate to soil herself rather than use the toilet because of the stress of seeing her genitals. Sorry, what about the 11-month-old baby? What about the child who never had a chance, who was strangled to death? Let me tell you something. I really don't care if somebody who killed an 11-month-old baby is having a distressing time by their own genitals. I hope you have a distressing time. I hope the rest of your life you suffer. Now the state of Indiana, Sabrina, has to pay $27,000 out of taxpayer funds to pay for this gender reassignment surgery.
It's absolutely disgusting. This is one of the most disturbing stories I've heard in a long time, and I can't believe no one else is talking about this.
Yeah.
And so much fault goes to the ACLU that is behind this lawsuit against the state. Also, I encourage people to look up this inmate. This inmate is clearly very severely mentally ill,
Yes.
has these crazy tattoos all over their face, was even diagnosed by a psychiatrist and said that they actually did not have gender dysphoria. They were simply seeking attention, which would also explain a lot of the interesting artwork on their face and behaviors in the past. This person is clearly not only mentally ill, but is not worthy of a single amount of comfort, let alone at the taxpayer's expense after the horrible things they did to this child.
Yeah, I thought, and maybe I'm the crazy one, Brianna, but I thought when you went to prison, it was supposed to suck. I thought it was supposed to be a bad time. I thought you were supposed to suffer. And the idea that, I mean, and by the way, this is not an anomaly. This sort of thing in other states is apparently a regular expenditure. This is just like a standard thing. Yes, you're an inmate who feels like you're in the wrong body. We're going to provide you with gender reassignment surgery. You remember that this was a question that I believe Kamala Harris got asked during the campaign and didn't seem to have a very good answer for it. That these are the kind of surgeries that are being performed for people who break our laws and are either in prison or being held or whatever it is. This is outrageous to me. And I agree. I can't believe no one else is talking about it. I saw this story. I said, this is insane.
Agreed. And when we talk about these, what's happening in these prisons, right? Like you said, prisons used to be a place where you didn't want to go because they suck. Now it's a place where you get a cell phone, TV, access to outdoor time, galore, and possibly having sex reassignment surgery. And what's really discouraging is that this is not a system that is working. It's not a system. We're not turning out people. We're not releasing people from prison. They're doing better in life. We have high recidivism rates. It's also not a system in which we are punishing bad behavior like someone who strangles an 11-month-old. And the idea that the rest of the world should acquiesce to someone with mental illness, and you have doctors who are pretending when they say someone is suffering from gender dysphoria and needs gender reassignment surgery. That is not a legitimate treatment. There is not enough medical studies being done right now about the effects of castration, about the effects of this hormone therapy for anybody, prisoners or just children in schools. And when doctors push that lie, they are doing just that, pushing a lie because they are benefiting financially from it, not thinking about the future of these people.
It's crazy. I feel bad for all the taxpayers in Indiana. I'm sorry that your money's going to go to this. This person should have to suffer for the rest of his life. And I don't care if he's uncomfortable in his body. I hope he is. I hope he's uncomfortable forever, because that is, you took a baby's life away. There's no excuse for that whatsoever. We're talking earlier about Elon, about DOGE. Elon also announced earlier this week that they're going to start investigating, and I quote, strangely wealthy members of Congress, Sabrina. I'll tell you the ones he specifically calls out. He specifically has taken aim at Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren, whose cumulative net worth is said to be an estimated $439 million. This is interesting because a lot of people for a long time, Sabrina, have wondered, how is it on the salary of a member of Congress you're able to amass such incredible wealth? Where did all of that come from? How is that possible? Because don't forget, these are the people who were very preachy and said, we don't need, this was back during the first Trump administration, we don't need a wall. We don't believe in walls. Walls don't work. And yet you look at all of their multi-million-dollar mansions and they're all surrounded by, a wall, a gate of some variety, because they've done very well. How have they done so well? I think it's about time we start looking into this, because it seems like a lot of people have been happy to look the other way.
I totally agree. This is the best news I think I've heard all day. When you look at these lifelong politicians that are literally public servants that are worth tens of millions of dollars, and a lot of them seem to have very interesting stock trade portfolios to the point where Nancy Pelosi has now become a meme. I don't know if you've seen it, of her on her phone telling who to trade whenever anything interesting happens, to trade some stock. It's very obvious, but also insulting that this has never been looked into. I don't know how the average American, especially as I mentioned during tax season, is not questioning this insane amount of wealth. Look at our favorite Bernie Sanders. The man likes to claim that he is one of the people. He believes in socialism so much.
Millionaires and billionaires.
Right? That's a good impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, he owns multiple homes, is worth so much money, seems to get a lot of money from big pharmaceutical companies specifically. And I have to imagine has quite a bit of stock invested in those.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing money increased in general for salary for a United States senator or United States congressman, because these are tough jobs. The truth is, Brianna, whenever you look at possibly going down the path of becoming a public servant, there's a lot you give up. I seriously looked into it not very long ago for the United States Senate. And it's tough. You live away from your family for most of the week. If your family stays in your home state, you're in Washington, D.C. I wouldn't mind increasing the salary a little bit for some of these individuals, But I do find it very interesting that they are so preachy to the rest of us, and yet they have, I mean, that those four people have a cumulative net worth of almost $500 million. And I do think a lot of people are like, wait a minute, you've been there forever. Like, these are lifers in Washington, D.C. Why is that? What is it that you have access to that's allowed you to make this money? And why is it you don't want to leave these positions ever? It's very interesting.
Yeah, and Laura, I got to be honest, two things. One, your Bernie Sanders impression, impeccable. Second, I would say that I don't know if members of Congress deserve a raise because the only reason we're seeing action right now and tangible results is because of Donald Trump, not because
That's true.
Congress have gotten off their behinds. Because we've had Republicans in office for quite a while, hasn't done anything. The other thing I'd say is this is a really good difference. Sorry, it's pouring here. This is a good difference between Donald Trump and people like Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren always talks about, eating the rich, taxing the rich. She hates capitalism, and she's profited immensely off of it, but she pretends like she hasn't. Donald Trump is a man who owns up to benefiting from capitalism because of his hard work. And what he does is he sends a message to the people, you can be just like me. You work hard enough, the system as it does me. He doesn't try to hide it. And that's that authenticity factor that Donald Trump has, where people say he's your sidewalk billionaire. You feel like you can relate to him more than Elizabeth Warren because he worked for it and he's not shy about it. Elizabeth Warren, how she got all that money remains to be seen. And she tries to pretend like she doesn't have it.
Well, and we know she's going to have a beer whenever she is celebrating all of her money. You know what it is though, to me, I think it's like the genuine nature of Donald Trump is undeniable, right? He is who he is. He doesn't apologize for it. He's never apologized for the money he has. He worked hard, to your point, Brianna, to get it and to get there. And he worked his whole life to attain the wealth that he currently has. But he also he's real, and some people don't like that. Some people like the phoniness of a lot of these other folks who will say one thing to your face and then behind the scenes act a totally different way. But I think the American people are just yearning for authenticity. And I think that is the big difference between Donald Trump and a lot of these other people. These other people have to put on their political face and they go out in front of the camera and they act a certain way. I can tell you, I have seen Donald Trump. I've known him for over 15 years. He is who he is. He's the same way behind the scenes as he is out in front. He's the same guy. And that's why people like him, because he's very genuine. Some people can't handle it, though. Some people like the fake, I guess, the phony nature of the rest of it, Sabrina. I don't know. For me, I'm always going to take the real thing. At least you know where you stand. At least you have full transparency with this administration. We're telling you, everything the DOGE found out in the past week right here on this show. They're telling you all of this on the doge.gov website. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no nonsense. It's just reality. It's what it is. And so I guess some people can't handle that. And I don't know what to say to them. They may need to go find themselves a nice movie to watch if that's the case. Although movies have kind of gone downhill. I haven't seen a movie in the movie theater in ages. I don't know. Have you ladies seen a movie? And when's the last time you went to the movie theater, Sabrina?
I think Wicked was the last movie I've seen in the last 2 years. That was in November. But before that, it had probably been 2 years since I'd seen a movie in the theaters. And it took a musical that I loved to finally get me to the theaters. But now they're doing everything from putting bars and pickleball courts in movie theaters over why not just make better movies so people go to the theaters. They're kind of going above and beyond.
I agree. Brianna, when's the last time you went to a movie?
I went and saw Barbie a year and a half ago, I think.
Okay. See, it's been a minute. I don't even know the last time I was in a movie theater. I'm sort of ashamed. No, you know what? I do know when it was. It was Top Gun. Eric and I went to see it. My God, I don't even know. What was that, 3 years ago? Is that so sad?
Yeah.
All right. So instead of actually making movies better to entice people, as Sabrina, as you just said, apparently there's a whole thing. Variety put out this whole article where they want to make sure that instead of just making movies better, they're enticing people in other ways. Here's their idea. They say, maybe we should actually add pot smoking and allowing people to just text ad nauseum in these movie theaters. Can you imagine paying all this money? I mean, I don't even know how much it costs to go to see a movie these days. Last time I remember it was $25 or something. And then you buy the popcorn and then you get a drink and then you get some sort of candy or sweet of some variety. You're in for $70 and then you go in there and you fill it in a room of pot. Like, is this really how low we've gone at this point, Sabrina? I'm really wondering about this.
I mean, I think we need to follow the money. I think the plan here is for people to get munchies and then buy more at the concession stand just to keep revenue going to make up for the lack of tickets that they're able to
Yeah.
sell because of how bad these movies have gotten. But that sounds like my nightmare. It truly does.
It sounds pretty bad. Brianna, what do you think? Is that going to work?
I don't think so. I would be less inclined to go to the theater if I knew people were going to be smoking any kind of pot or cigarette. And I think the reason movies are doing so bad is because Hollywood as a brand is so toxic. You go
Yeah.
in there and you're lectured about gender or race or whatever. They're giving you unrealistic standards of everyday American life. It's unrelatable. Americans would rather tune in at home to, watch The Godfather for the 1000th time than watch a woke movie. So until they fix the brand and the core problem, they can do anything they want to a theater. It's not going to change it.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like, when you sit down to watch a movie or you download it on your phone for like a flight or whatever it is, you do that to escape. You do that to get away from all of this stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I've been watching a movie lately, and this is there. It's always on flights because that's all I do. I'm in the air all the time, and I start to get into it. And I'm like, oh, this is a good movie. And then there's some little like nugget of wokeness, and I'm like, oh, the whole thing. Then I'm done with the movie. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I can't watch this anymore. It ruins the whole thing. So I agree. Can we just bring back the good movies? Can we just throw it back to the days whenever there were trailers and you would watch them? Like they would show them on TV and get people hyped up about it. I don't know where those days went, but I'm ready for them to come back. Maybe we get Donald Trump on that. It seems like he's doing everything else. We might as well add this one in. Although he does have a team who's trying to look into kind of like the Hollywood industry. I'm like Mel Gibson and Sylvester Stallone, right? Aren't they all part of some crew he's got that's looking into that? Ambassadors of some variety for Hollywood, something? No.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know that, people have called it conspiracy theory for so long that there's been this Marxist agenda in Hollywood. And I'm very curious to see what they come up with because I think it's become pretty blatant when we look at the evolution of social agendas being pushed in movies over the last 30, 40 years, especially. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious to see what they come up with.
Well, let's stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I want to say thank you to both of you ladies, Sabrina and Brianna, for joining us here for The Right View. As always, we appreciate you. And to everybody at home, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.